Good evening, good afternoon, everyone. So today we have with us Samadrita Ghosh. She is she graduated in 2020 from IIT Guwahati with a bachelor in design. She's been working as a freelance illustrator, a visual development artist, and she's also been working with 2D animation as well. So hi Samadrita, it's great to have you with us. How are you doing?
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm doing great. And thanks to everyone for joining.
Cool, cool. So, as someone who recently graduated, what are some ways to optimize your time at a design school?
So, if you ask me, everyone has different experiences with college. But according to me, it's less about the coursework that you study there and more about the life skill that you pick up. And for me, the two main life skills that I picked up were A, teamwork, and B, how to learn things as I do them. Right? So, firstly, teamwork. When we talk about teamwork, it's not just like everyone, quietly doing what they're supposed to do and somehow it all works out in the end. But it's also like how you understand people when you're working with them. Like you understand what everybody's good at, how to delegate work so that it brings out the best in everybody. Uh, how to exchange your opinions in a civil manner, not taking criticism personally, and also like telling your own opinions without offending people. Like it's a skill that you really learn, right? Also, you also learn how to be empathetic towards people, because when you're working in a team, they're all people, right? And what do people have? People have problems. So sometimes you will have someone who is not turning in their work on time, they're not showing up for meetings. And as a kid, as me as a first year, right, my first reflex used to be to get angry, right? Like, why are you not doing your work? I'm doing my work. But then as years go by, you understand that people have their own things going on, right, in their life. Somebody might be struggling with physical health, somebody might be struggling with mental health, people have family issues. And as you work more and more with people, you understand how to really be empathetic with them, give them patience, give them time, be kind. Because when, like, it can be somebody else, it can even be you. And when you are going through a hard time and you're not being able to concentrate on work, having a team that really supports you through that makes you want to give your best to the team again. So in the end, you guys end up doing the best work you can, making the best project you can. So this is skill number one. Skill number two is that we can't always wait until we learn everything perfectly and then start working. Sometimes we just have to jump into things and then learn as we go. And college was like a storm of that. So one day we got an assignment on biomimicry in first year. Like, we are dumb kids. What is biomimicry? They haven't even heard the word, right? And so sir gives us the assignment at 12 p.m. and it's due at 3 p.m. And we're like, how are we going to finish this? But there's no other choice, right? You just have to do it, get it done. So we just spent the whole afternoon like sitting in the computer center, like biomimicry. And then within 3 hours, somehow we did it, right? It wasn't the best thing, but we learned so much. And that is also a skill, because another time I experienced this in real life was when, and if Gaurav is here, you know what I'm talking about. So while working on Aina, a lot of you might know I did backgrounds for this music video called Aina by Afka. And there you'll see there was a lot of urban landscapes, right? Buildings, high rises, and all of that. And before that point, I had never drawn a single building in my life. So when Gaurav sends me these thumbnails, and I'm panicking. I'm like, I have never drawn things like this. How am I supposed to get this done, right? And he was also super helpful. He gave me all the references, all the tutorials, anything I needed, right? But one day I was like, listen, this project needs me to do something for it, so I have to do it. There is no other choice. So one day I just sat down for 4 or 5 hours, metaphorically cried, and somehow got it done, right? And within those 4 hours, I could feel myself getting more and more comfortable with something I had never done before. So in design school, it's less about what you learn and how you pick up the and more about what life skills you pick up, which you apply to every other professional field that you do out of college, right? So yeah.
That's definitely something to keep in mind. That's like really good advice. Also, could you share something about your online alias and why you chose that name in particular?
Yeah, that's pretty simple. So my family calls me by the nickname Tikklil. Tikklil is the jewelry that brides wear on their head.
Right.
And my first online art page was on Facebook, and it was called The Little Artist. So I took Tikli from my name and the Lil from Little and sort of smashed them together.
That's really cool. So, I've seen your illustration work. So as an illustrator, how important is it to like kind of find your own style? And like how do you really develop your own style?
So this is a question that I get pretty often, especially from illustrators who are much younger than me and they're just starting out. And this is something we agonize over a lot, like what will happen if I don't find my own style. To that I say style is less about how you draw something, and it's more about what are the kinds of stories that you want to tell that are unique to you. Like once you really start focusing on what you want to talk about in your art, your style is something that automatically shines through. It's like handwriting, you can't hide it. Like, so what I say is just draw to your heart's content. Find out what you love drawing. Find out why you love drawing it. What about your past experiences informs why you love drawing something, and just draw as much as you can. Eventually you'll start seeing workflows, processes that suit you better, and then you'll start leaning more and more into it, make it more efficient, make it more you. So for example, my art style has changed heaven and hell from like 2019, but if you look at my 2019 work, you can still see that it's the same person who made it, right? So, and that is what a lot of people see as style. They don't see, oh, this person used this brush to make the line. And that is like only a fraction of style. The person behind it, you are the real style, is what I always say. So while it's important to develop style, don't stress about it too much. If you keep drawing, if you keep enjoying art, it'll come eventually.
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of reassuring, honestly, especially as someone who's like, you know, in their first year. Okay, so you're basically a visual development
Yeah.
artist. So what is visual development exactly? Like according to you? I mean, how would you explain it?
So VisDev can have different meanings depending on different projects. So if you want a simple explanation, it's like we create a vibe, right? When suppose Disney or Pixar, they release an art book of a movie. So what you see in the art book is how they got from an idea to a visual representation of that idea. The whole process is visual development. So when a pitch for a project comes in, it's usually in text, and the work of the wisdom artist is to interpret that text, get meaning out of it, and represent it visually. So that can happen in many ways. Some artists are only sketching thumbnails. They're just working with colors. How do the colors of the film evolve throughout the film to show a shift in mood? You know, some artists work in like the actual designs that will be used in the film or the book or whatever you're working on, and that's like actual pre-production design that they're doing. So wisdom artists can do a lot of things. So if suppose in a film, the lighting suddenly goes from blue to red when a character gets angry. There was a wisdom decision taken behind that. Uh, a very good character becomes evil when somebody kills their lover or something. Their character design changes. You can still see it's the same person, but they have like loose hair or whatever. They have an evil smile. Their eyes become narrow or something like that. Those are all wisdom decisions. So any aesthetic choice that an artist makes that helps it easier for the story to be told efficiently, that would be called visual development in my experience.
Okay, okay. That's cool. So also I wanted to ask, so what motivated you to really start freelancing? I mean, as soon as you got out of college.
Right. So I actually started freelancing even before I got into college, which was completely like I wasn't expecting it. But my first professional work was with Studio Durga. And it was a really unique combination at that time, because I was a kid, I was just 16, and I was a new professional. The studio was a new studio. So it was a really unique environment, because I was figuring things out, they were also figuring things out. So there was a lot of open communication going on, there was a lot of freedom to experiment, explore, really it used to be like discussions you have in college, right? It was really like horizontal, it was so fun. The hierarchy wasn't super hard or something like that. So I think since it was such an early experience for me, it really informed how I wanted to work in the future, and how I saw myself in relation to my work. So I think from that time onward, I became really inclined to projects that give me a lot of freedom and time to figure things out. But sure, freelancing is stressful. I have to do all the work myself. I am the whole studio. I am my own boss, my own employee, my own unpaid intern, everything. But like at the end of the day, it's worth it, because when somebody is giving me a freelance project, there is a sense of being needed, and that's a very human desire, that somebody is coming to me. I am not going to them, they are coming to me because they need me, right? And that's gratifying in its own way. It makes all the stress worth it. So like for the nearest future, I can see that I'll be freelancing for as long as I can, for as long as I can, actually.
Yeah, I mean, those are like definitely a lot of positives about it. But how do you deal with, like, say, a conflict with your client when you're, freelancing?
Right. So when I'm freelancing, obviously there will come a time when the client wants something and I don't agree with that, or vice versa. And this is where the communication skills comes in, which I talked about in the first question, that learning to politely disagree with someone is also a skill. And oftentimes it's not even like the client is trying to argue or pick a fight with me. They just have a vision of their own, right? And I have to respect that, because it's their project after all. So what usually happens is that most of my clients are not artists themselves, or they don't have the visual experience to immediately understand that what they're trying to achieve will not look that good when actually drawn, right? So at that point, I feel like it's my what is the word for it? It's my duty to let them know that, listen, I think it's my creative opinion that if I do this, it's probably not going to work. Here is an alternative. Like, would you want to try this out with me? Sometimes they say yes, and usually it works out. But sometimes they really double down and they're like, no, this is exactly what I want. At that time, what I do is I create a copy, first of all. Like, I still want to preserve the before stage of it, right? I create a copy and then I apply whatever changes they have asked me to do on that one. 7 out of 10 times what happens is that they realize, when they see it, they realize that, oh, this is not going to work. And then they're like, sure, like, please revert back to whatever you were going to do earlier. So that's when my copy comes in handy. So I'm like, all right, gotcha. And there are also times when, while I am drawing their suggestion, I realize that, hey, what they are saying can also work if I just try a different approach. So that becomes a learning experience for me. It can work both ways. But at the end of the day, most clients are nice. They are just trying to, get their project materialized. And disagreements will happen, but we eventually sort it out.
Okay. So, any tips for someone who's just starting out freelancing, or, in general, tips for freelancers at all?
Right. Okay. So there are three main points that I always talk about. One is make your work accessible. Two is market the absolute crap out of your work. And three is have your prices ready. First one is that you have to make the work that you want to do, you have to create your own portfolio, so that if people want to hire you, they have something to refer to. This seems really obvious, but there have been a lot of times where I have had to explain to younger artists that if you never put your work out into the public, there is like almost no chance that people will hire you, right? Because if you were to hire somebody, you would want to see their work, right? So the first step is have somewhere where a potential client can easily access your work and some of your best work, and especially in the field that you want to work in the future. So technically I can do animation, I can do a little bit of graphic design, but what is my portfolio focused on? It's focused on illustration and then visual development, because these two are the places that I really want to work in. So I will focus my portfolio on that. So that's number one. Number two is you have to shamelessly market your work. And I mean it, like no shame. So most of us today, if social media is really, convenient in terms of having a platform to share, and the internet is a loud place, like, right? Everyone is talking all the time. So you are probably not as loud as you think as you are, So whenever you get the chance, market your work, advertise yourself. And I promise you, it's not cringe, it's not annoying, because people have probably forgotten about you the first time you did it. And that's the hard truth. You have to constantly keep, marketing yourself, reminding people that you exist. And the more you bump yourself, the more chances there are that potential clients will see you, right? So the internet is screaming all the time. You just have to scream louder so that you get, a fraction second of visibility every time you do that. And the third thing is you have to know how to value your work. And by that, I mean pricing. Pricing can be hard, especially if you're starting out. But I always say that before you start, before you say commissions open or whatever, have your prices ready. Because it might seem like, I'll just make something up, कुछ guess मार लेंगे, ठीक है? But at that time, two things can happen. One thing is you will like severely undervalue your own work. Otherwise, your pricing across projects is going to be just wildly, fluctuating. Like there won't be a standard pricing of your work. So I know pricing is a little difficult because it's so vague. At that point, I just say the artist community is insanely supportive. Just approach any artist who you see is making a living like this. Ask them how they price their work. Ask me how I price my work. I'm always there to help you guys out, right? Any other more experienced artists that you have, just ask them, how do you value your work? And then make your own conclusions that how do I value my work? So, and that pricing can always be extended into larger projects. If I know how much I charge for one illustration, if somebody asks me to make a 12 illustration book, I'll know how to extrapolate that across. So always have your prices ready before you start. And the last part is when you have already started getting work as a freelancer, then you could try thinking about diversifying so that you don't get stuck with just one mode of payment. And if you don't get commissions for a month, you're stuck with no income. So it's unpredictable at its core, right? Freelancing. So you have to safeguard yourself the best you can. So there are like merch, there's prints, there's other kinds of stores, Patreon, Ko-fi. There's so many avenues. Just see what works best for you and try to diversify.
Okay. So, basically, I mean, I've looked at your illustrations and they're like really pretty. So, there's a lot of like light and shade going on. So what does like your typical illustration process like look like? I mean, how do you start and how do you just go about it?
Okay, so usually it starts with an idea, right? If it's a personal illustration, it starts with something I want to convey. So it can be a mood, it can be it can be triggered by anything. I see a pretty sky one day and I was like, oh, maybe I can draw a sky. It's something like that. So I'll get an idea first. But if it's a commissioned illustration, it usually starts with the client's brief. So I directly jump off from there. Somebody else has the idea then. Then what I start doing is I start collecting references. So for example, for ideas where I'm a little bit shaky on some subjects, like if I want to draw a specific type of tree, right? If I want to draw a bamboo tree specifically, I'll need references. So I'll start gathering all the references I think that I need and make a collage out of it, which I can refer to while drawing. Secondly, and then the next step is I'll start thumbnailing, like small thumbnails, small pictures to work out a composition that will look good. And then whatever thumbnail I feel looks the best, that's gonna get expanded. And from there, I'll start making a rough sketch. And sketching, usually everyone knows how it goes. Like there'll be a really rough sketch. Then there'll be maybe 2 to 3 passes where I make it progressively cleaner and cleaner. And then finally, there's the line art. After the line art, I'll do the flat filling of the whole thing. That's where I completely lock on the color scheme, what I want and everything. Like if your illustration looks good at the flat fill stage, it will probably look good at the fully rendered stage as well. So it's important for me to make even the flats look like a presentable illustration. After that, I just go down to different materials and start rendering them separately as whatever, the metal will be metal, the tree will be a tree, whatever. And at the last, I do the lighting. So there's a lot of layers going on. I am an artist that uses a lot of layers, and it scares many of my artist friends too. But then there's a lot of one on top of the other going on, and the whole thing sort of creates the composite effect.
And basically, I had a question about anime. So whenever we hear anime, we usually associate it to Japan. So is anime like a style, or is it just something that's exclusive to Japan?
If I have to be that really obnoxious, nerdy kid, anime is any animation. In Japan, anime is just an abbreviation they use to refer to animation, like we say cartoon, right? So even, I don't know, Cinderella is an anime. If we speak technically, but since I'm interpreting your question how it's meant to be interpreted, so anime, definitely it originated in Japan, and we cannot erase that because it's thank God for Japan, right? So there are certain theories that say, like, I'm not exactly sure if it's true or not, but anime was made to emulate Disney's art style. And from there, it sort of evolved into what it is today, which is nothing like Disney's. So I feel like every art style takes inspiration from similar art styles that come before it. So even if it originated in Japan, I feel like at the end of the day, it's just a style, right? So if you can draw it, then why not draw it? That would be like saying, since humans started realistic painting for the first time during the Renaissance period in Italy, does that mean only Italians are allowed to draw realistic portraits? Obviously not, right? So yeah, if you can draw, why not?
Yeah. I mean that makes sense. Um, Also, one more thing. So basically, out of all of the 2D animation projects you've worked on, because there are quite a few on your website, what was like your favorite one, or like the one you had the most fun working on?
Okay. I actually have two favorites when it comes to my animation, and the two are for two different reasons. The first one is a series of animated shorts called Divided. I started this in, I think, 2018 or 2017, around that time. And that is very close to my heart because that's the first animation project where I am actually starting to take animation seriously, like beyond like small GIFs. Like I had ambition for the first time. Let's make a whole 1 minute thing, right? And that was because a professor at college, she really pushed me. She was like, "You've never done an animation before, but I know you can do it. So why don't you try?" Right? So I started with that 1 minute clip, and it sort of evolved into the series that I have, and now it has 4 episodes. So that it really marks my growth as an animator. So it's a really precious project to me because it's like a diary, right? And the second project that I would say is one I finished in 2021, and it's a short animation film called Memories of Summer. And that is also another milestone in my animating style, because this is where I tried a completely different style of storytelling than what came previously. So the whole objective with this film was that, can I make the viewer think of a story by just showing them a sequence of events? And after showing it to a lot of my friends, I asked them what the story was, and everyone had a wildly different interpretation. And that was so fun. And I think I'm really proud of this project because it invoked the kind of emotions in the viewers that I really intended. So it's like success for me. So these two are my favorite.
That's really cool. So, as an animator, do you prefer working by yourself or working in a team, in a group of people?
Mm-hmm. So working by myself and working as a team both have their own pros and cons, right? when I'm working alone, I know that I know exactly what I want. I know what my strengths are. I can play to my strengths, stay in my comfort zone, and there's a guarantee that the product will be good because I know exactly what I want, right? And there's also like a lot of time saved because I don't have to do back and forth with anybody. There's no communication, so it happens more quickly and more efficiently. The cons are that my weaknesses also stay constant, so there will be some gaps that like no one is filling it in for me, so that's when working on my own. But when I need help on a project, I'm not afraid to ask for help, obviously. So when working in a team, it's fun in a different way. I am all for collaboration and creating together with people. And when you have a good team, like amazing things can happen. And when you complete a project with a team, the sense of collective, accomplishment, that's insane. Like I remember when we were working on this animated film called Favorite Song, which it was very ambitious because the frame rate was insane, and I knew I couldn't do it alone. So it was a very informal team, so I just did a looking for people to work on my Instagram, and then people just volunteered, and we formed this ragtag bunch of people from like all over the world, and we had like a very tight deadline because I was submitting it for Tasi, right? Tasi used to have this like viewers choice animation awards, and we were submitting it for
Oh,
that.
okay.
And we worked like mad people for like I think a month, and we got we made a whole 2-minute film. And when it got nominated as one of the finalists of the contest, everybody was yelling in the group chat. So that is something I only get when I'm collaborating with other creatives, and that is one of the biggest reasons why I love working in a team.
That's really nice. Yeah, I mean that feeling, congratulations for that nomination,
So
by the
we
way.
all did it together, right?
Yeah. Also, so is it important to kind of keep up with trends, like whether in animation or illustration, and like do you have to kind of constantly keep changing your work according to what's coming out in the market?
Okay, that's a tricky question because when you are a freelance artist, getting as many people as possible to see your work is really important. And following trends is a great way for, more for your work to get more exposure, because it's a trend because a lot of people care about it, right? And when you are drawing something that a lot of people care about, that is like an automatic, good thing for you because you're getting a lot of traction instantly. And so if you're looking to build an audience, I'd say that following trends, at least to some degree, will help you a lot, right? And that includes fan arts, that includes like, using popular audios in reels, stuff like that. But at the same time, you are also a person with your own artistic vision, right? And you want to keep drawing to sort of keep yourself sane. And some people really need to have that sort of creative outlet. So I was like within that sort of dilemma. So I solved that by making 2 accounts. One where I draw for the masses and one where I draw for myself. And this account where I'm talking to you from right now is all for my personal work. And I know that people who are following me in this account are here for just what I have to say authentically as myself, right? And that's a different kind of comfort. Uh, if you guys don't know, I have another account which is just reserved for like fan art, especially BTS fan art, because since the BTS fandom is so huge, I get a lot of my work from there. That's the great part about being in a pop culture fandom. So we really need to compartmentalize at some point that what part of it am I drawing, to get attention, and which part of it am I drawing to stay sane. So if you can make that distinction, I think you'll be fine.
Okay, okay, right. So, what are some challenges you faced as a visual development artist throughout the years? And more recently, like when the pandemic happened, how did that kind of affect your work?
Mm. So before the pandemic started, I wasn't a visual development artist at all. So I became what I am. Like almost a lot of my growth, 70% of my growth as an artist happened during the pandemic, I'd say. And sure, we can't discount how much of a bad effect the pandemic had on us. My mental health is still like a mess, and the burnout was real. But I think what happened during the pandemic was that I had so much time just to myself where I didn't have to do anything else. Like there was no college, there was no work, there was nothing I had to do every day. So every day sort of melded into the next, and it was just like one long stretch of day, and just time and time. So what do I do with all this time? I just used to draw all the time, especially in 2020, after I graduated, right? After all my exams were done, my end sems were done, all my submissions are finished, and I'm just waiting for the graduation ceremony so that I can have my degree. What do? I just draw 24/7. And all that drawing, I think, really gave me the time and the practice to take my art to the next level. So if we are talking about the pandemic work-wise, I think it helped me a lot, but it also had its cons because I hurt my wrist and it's still healing,
Oh,
right? But I still love drawing, so I couldn't stop drawing even when I was getting hurt. So
yeah.
at this point, what happened is that I would say the pandemic actually helped me build my career, because clients also had a lot of time on their hands, and they were also coming
Right.
up with new ideas. They were like, what do I do with this time? Oh, let me commission an artist, right? It was like that. So I think the whole ecosystem sort of worked out for like our favor. So yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, like all of this like continuous drawing. So, how do you deal with art block, or like, when you just can't think of any new ideas at all? Like, how do you, kind of get out of that phase?
Right. So the thing here is, art block is basically your brain telling you that it needs a rest, right? So when I am drawing continuously, it is not because I am forcing myself to draw, but it was because that at the beginning of the pandemic, I was like mentally much healthier, I'd say, and my brain just wasn't as tired, so I could keep drawing. But at some point the burnout really hit, right? And I'm like, I can't think of new ideas, my arms won't work, like everything I draw looks bad. What do I do? And at that point, this is something I came to the realization recently: just drop your pencil and rest. Do nothing. When your brain is screaming for rest, you give it a rest, right? And this is something I think the Ghibli movie Kiki's Delivery Service talks about, where Kiki is so burnt out that she can't even fly her broom. And the more she thinks about it, the worse it gets, right? I'm getting tearing at just thinking about it. Anyway, so her artist friend, what she says is that just give it a rest for as long as you need. Don't even think about flying, right? And eventually, flying is a part of you, right? It won't just get deleted if you don't do it for a few days. Art is a part of me. It's not going anywhere. So if I try to give it a rest, maybe I'll feel better after a while. So this is where I start concentrating more on my hobbies, spending time with friends, family, reading something, doing completely different things, writing, whatever. And after a while, it though the burnout completely doesn't go away, because mental health is not that simple. I'm still dealing with burnout and still working. But on certain days, it'll be like, it's slightly better today. Maybe I can draw a tree today, you know? And you take
Yeah.
those little chances and you don't push yourself beyond your limit. Like if you can draw a tree, don't attempt a forest. Just draw a tree, have fun, relax, remind yourself that drawing is fun. And then just
Right.
go back to resting, give yourself time. So that's how I deal with.
Mm. Can you talk to
Definitely.
us about your journey as a fan artist? Like, when did it start and how has it gone?
It started when I was 2 years old and I used to watch Powerpuff Girls, and every day I used to try to draw them because I was so fascinated by the art style that whenever they used to cross their arms like this, it used to become an infinity symbol. And I was like, dude, wow, that's insane. As a 2-year-old, I was like, wow, stylization, right? But no, my serious journey as a fan artist on social media, I'd say, would start in 2019 when I first started making BTS fan art on my other account. And it was receiving a lot of traction. And the fandom is huge, right? So as I kept making more and more art, I started making stories also, the things we called AUs. And I also started making more friends within the fandom. And some of the friends I have made because of my journey as a fan artist are one of my best friends now. And they are artists, they are creators. And we have collaborated on many projects. And it's always been a fun time. So I definitely think it was great that I joined the fan artist scene because it's helped me polish my skills a lot, because we as artists, we often show our love for things by drawing them. So whatever we love, we go draw them immediately, right? So when you love something so much that you're drawing it constantly, it also helps you build your skill. So I attribute a lot of my improvement as an artist to me being a fan artist, and also because I met a lot of good friends there.
Okay. We have a question from the audience. I'm just gonna click on that. It's actually like two questions, I guess. So basically, at what age did you know what you wanted to do and which career path you wanted to choose, and what inspired you to take this path?
This is interesting because most kids in India, they are usually pushed towards choosing a career path when they're in 11th, 12th, right? Because after that, they have to give their college entrances, etc. Interestingly enough, both my parents are doctors. So in 11th and 12th, I was 100% geared towards studying for medical school. And the funny part is that I even cleared the entrance. I got into, like, my rank was good enough. I would have gotten into good colleges if I wanted to. But it was like that, right? I'm about to get married, but I'm still in love with my ex. It was like that for me and art. Like, this is my lifelong story. It's very difficult for me to do something if I don't love it, because at the back of my mind it'll be like, hey, you don't really want this, you don't really want this, go back. So in 11th grade, I was like, I told my parents that, listen, I really want to pursue something in art. I want to study, I want to apply for design. And NID was one of them. Oh, fun fact, I got rejected from NID not once, but twice. Once for bachelor's and once for master's,
Oh my God.
which is fun.
That's,
So
wow.
yeah, so I told my parents that I know I'm studying for medical right now, but I will also apply to design schools, right? I will apply to these places. And my parents were fine. They said fine, but you still have to give this exam. But and like, if you get a good score, you'll feel good about it. You won't regret it later. So they still push me to study. So for 2 years, I studied for medical and just scribbled on the side. But even then, I knew that I wanted to go into art. There was no turning back about it. So I think that's when I decided. It was also triggered when I saw, the Zong Bros, Krishna and Balram Banerjee. I think seeing their work and how they're sustaining themselves as artists in the industry, freelancing from India, that also gave me a lot of motivation to try that career out for myself. I was like, if they can do it, then I can also do it if I just try.
Mhm.
So yeah, and I'm glad I had supportive parents, for that matter. Like, yes, they did make me go through with medical, but like, I'll forgive that.
Another question. So, what software do you use for most of your animation work?
Uh, since I'm not a professional animator or anything, I just use Procreate because it gets the job done. It's easy.
Mm, yeah. And in the illustration process, what's your least favorite part of it? I mean, line art and then coloring.
It's probably filling in the flat colors because it's so tedious. Like, yeah, definitely filling in flats. If I could hire somebody just to do flatting for me, I just like, yeah, just don't make me do it. Somebody else do it, please.
Okay. Does anyone have any more questions? You guys can type them in the question, I mean, box. And one last question from my side is, what are your plans for like this year? Like, do you have any, exciting projects coming up or anything you'd be willing to share?
Ah. I have a lot of NDA projects coming up, so there's very little I can talk about, without breaking the law or something. But two very exciting projects are coming up this year, and both of which are in fields that I haven't explored professionally before. One is making narrative art, like comics or like similar stuff, and the other is writing. So yeah, look forward to it. I'll talk about it soon.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, we don't have any more questions from the audience. So I think that brings us to the end of our live session for today. And thank you so much for speaking with us. And thank you to the audience for tuning in. And I learned a
Oh,
lot. So I hope you guys did too. And yeah, I can't wait to have you on another live session soon.
oh, sure. Yeah, this was very fun. Thanks for having me. And thanks everyone for joining. I hope I didn't bore you guys.
No, definitely not. Okay.
All right.
Yeah, okay then.
See
Bye
ya.
bye.
Bye bye.